I've had this channel now for several years, at least 2. And definitely for a long time, I've been kind of going back and forth of exactly what type of content that I want to have on here. When I originally conceptualized the idea, I just knew that I wanted to talk about stuff that literally would make me scratch my head and go, really? Seriously? For real? And certainly I found my stride in other things that I will continue to do, but there's one thing that I do want to hone in on, and that's my health. Because I've been going through something that I want to share with you. So, would you mind following along? Let's go. Hey guys, it's Marsha and welcome to Really Seriously For Real. And thanks for indulging me for a little bit on this, we'll say out of character video. But I guess it's not so out of character because it's all about me. And you know, sometimes we just need to indulge ourselves. But if you follow me on social media, and I would say mainly like Instagram, because that's normally where, if I am active, that's where I get a little deeper. But if you follow me there, then you know that I've been battling an illness for quite some time. And I want to talk about that. So back in 2014, I was officially diagnosed with a disease called sarcoidosis. And it's a disease that honestly, it can attack any part of your body. It is an autoimmune disease that causes inflammation. It makes these granulomas that can show up in any part of your body. It can be in your skin, your lungs, your heart, your brain, your eyes, any place in your body. It could just be hanging out and you wouldn't even know. And honestly, it can come just as mysteriously as it could go in some people. And in other people, like me, it just ravages your body or various parts of your body. Nobody knows really a lot about this disease. It's certainly up to a certain point, it was considered rare. Which that makes it even more frustrating because not knowing where this came from, it's just, what they do know is that it's not something that's necessarily passed down from family member to family member or person to person. It's likely some sort of airborne or something that you may come in contact with, but unfortunately they don't know enough. For me, and I would say for the majority of the cases of sarcoidosis, is something that attacks the lungs. And what happens is it causes inflammation in whatever part that it attacks, and that inflammation, the granulomas that occur, will leave scarring on the lungs. It makes it very hard to breathe. And those were some of the first signals that there was something wrong with me way back in, I would say it was more so 2013, when I'm just kind of hanging out with my friends or my coworkers and we're laughing. And then I just start coughing. You know, I'm just going into a massive coughing fit that just got progressively worse. You know, initially thinking that it was just a cold. And so, you know, of course you doctor it up. You tea and soup and lots of rest, which was difficult because especially at that time I had 2 very young children. I think my kids were they were definitely under 7 at that point. So yeah, it was not easy to go and get some rest, but you know, I thought that I was doing all the normal things, but the cough was just not going away. So I ended up going to the doctor. And when I went to the doctor, they said, based on my symptoms, shortness of breath, wheezing, they said that it's logically adult onset asthma. So they started treating me for that. And I was being treated for that for a little while. So it was the wrong treatment, by the way, obviously. It was definitely considered a rare disease. Not a lot of doctors. Sarcoidosis is not the first thing that you're going to think of, especially back then. So, the treatment didn't work. And one day after having a major episode, because I was like chasing after my kids and we were running and, having a good time until I couldn't breathe and was having for me, a massive attack where I just felt like someone was sitting on my chest and I just couldn't get air in. Though if I concentrated hard enough and, just calm myself down in every possible way, then things would slowly calm down. Now, hindsight is 2020. I probably should have gone to the emergency room at that point, but I didn't. But the next day, I did reach out to a pulmonologist, and because I was just like, I need someone. There's something wrong with my lungs. It's not asthma. Basically, when I walked through the door with the symptoms that I had and some other things, he had already was sizing me up for sarcoidosis. But he didn't want to give me an official diagnosis until a CAT scan and x-rays and blood tests to check my ACE levels. Breathing tests, walk tests, so all these different tests. And then finally, he's just like, Marcia, have you ever heard of sarcoidosis? And honestly, other than, maybe hearing it mentioned on the TV show House a couple of times, I'd never heard of it. So when he's telling me this, I'm like, okay, well, sounds a little bit more interesting than asthma. Interesting is not the word. It was more scary. It was definitely more scary. But he started treating me very aggressively for this disease. So that meant prednisone and high levels of prednisone. I think he started me on 50 milligrams. And so I went from a really cute, tight little body to a larger one. And, I've been riding that roller coaster ever since. If you look back on some of my other videos, I was starting to lose some weight, and now I'm not. Prednisone is a steroid. Steroids, they increase your appetite, and at the end of the day, it's up to me what I ingest. So if I want to get down on some tasty treats like brownies and cookies, all baked into one delicious goodness over and over again, that's on me. And yeah, I should have been reaching for the carrot sticks, but listen, that's neither here nor there, okay? I started fighting this thing, and the steroids helped. And that's really the only thing that there's no cure for this disease. There's no cure. And the damage that it has done from 2014 to now, my lungs are considered stage 4. It's not like cancer, like stage 4, and then, but it is definitely, at the point where my lung, there's but so much that this disease could do, any further, as far as the damage is concerned. The damage is done. The scarring is there. You have scarring on your body, eventually it'll heal and it will lighten and it'll go away. But you have it on your lungs, it doesn't heal. Your body cannot heal scarring on your lungs. And that's what the problem is. You can't expand them and get those really nice deep breaths and get the oxygen flowing through your body, and so yeah. That's a problem. That's a problem. Now, it's funny because this same doctor, the pulmonologist, when I first walked into his office, I'm like rattling off all the things that had currently been happening to me. And so he was like, listen, first of all, slow down. And now don't just tell me stuff that has recently been happening. Tell me the things that started happening to you that were unlike anything that you had experienced with your body. And I'm like, well, as a matter of fact, back in 2008, I had these mosquito bites on my legs, and they were itchy. I would scratch them, and then come on, you try very hard not to scratch a mosquito bite, but sometimes it's just like, I just can't help it. And that's what I was doing with my legs. I'm like, gosh, these things are so, I don't know, it was the summertime, I was getting bitten, so I just assumed that they were mosquito bites, but they never quite healed. And if I wasn't such a stubborn person, especially back then, I would have gone to the doctor and been like, hey, these things are not healing. And I'm just thinking I scratched them and, just put some cocoa butter on it or something and hope for the best. And eventually they did heal. Eventually they did something, but they were just super dry. And again, I should have gone to the doctor like, hey, these things are like super dry. What's going on? Little spots all over my legs. My legs aren't cute anymore. So it turns out that those are dead-on markers for sarcoidosis. And that was back in 2008. I wasn't officially diagnosed until 2014. I had my first sign that something was wrong in my lungs in 2013. Prior to that, I was power walking. I was running the Biggest Loser campaign at my job. I was very active. I wasn't like, woohoo, let's go climb a mountain. I could care less about that. But I also, if I wanted to, sprint a block, it would be annoying, but I could do it. And then what seemed like overnight, I couldn't do anything anymore. If I start trying to figure out where this could have come from, I have no idea. In 2001, September 11th, I did work in the city, and my job was it was definitely within 2 city blocks of the World Trade Center. Now, I wasn't there the day of the attack. Everything was shut down before it was time for me to go in. But I did go back. It was like a week later, I think. And yeah, there was definitely, you could smell, you can smell it in the air. The air just wasn't right. You could see how, you could see particles in the air, like it just wasn't right. Now, I know that first responders came down with sarcoidosis. There was a huge uptick in sarcoidosis. So who's to say that I wasn't exposed? Because again, we don't know where sarcoidosis comes from, but it seems like some people are just, their bodies are just predisposed to these irritants, we'll say. So it's quite possible that it was lingering in my body that long. I don't know. I also lived in a home with exotic birds at one point. So, there have been various studies that they've been looking into the possibility that it could be exotic birds. But again, nobody knows. So honestly, at this point, I guess I don't really care exactly, because what's done is done. I'm screwed already. So it's like, who cares where it came from? I guess it's kind of good to have a general idea of where it may have stemmed from. However, sarcoidosis for me is like the gift that keeps on giving. And I mean that very sarcastically. Over the summer, I noticed that, my heart would always race whenever I would have an episode, because obviously if your lungs are working overtime, your heart's going to be working overtime. I ended up going to the cardiologist, and more CAT scans and blood tests, and then the big one, the MRI. They found that I did in fact have sarcoidosis in my heart, and it was basically short-circuiting my heart. I would have palpitations. My heart wouldn't, it just doesn't function efficiently. And so this led them to put in an ICD, but it's a pacemaker and a defibrillator. So since my heart sometimes just the rhythm, isn't right, the pacemaker will kick in. It's annoying because, again, my doctor's just like, oh, you won't feel it. I feel it. I feel it when it kicks in. And it does like some random, not even random, it does like a test of the unit every night, sometime after midnight. And I'm still awake. So I feel it. So that's annoying. It's just like everything about this disease is just, anyway. Oh, I want to say it's been a humbling experience. Yeah, it humbles you, but it just, at the same time, it's so frustrating because I'm tired all the time. And I joke around. I'm just like, oh, it's a lack of oxygen, but it kind of is. It is, so it's just like, damn it. But it just, sometimes I just don't feel like getting out and about. I shy away from outings sometimes because, it's weird because Francois, for example, he is very active outside. He loves to be in the outdoors. And it's like, every time I think about going for a walk, I'm always so self-conscious, especially if we're gonna go out with other people. I'm self-conscious that I'm gonna have an episode. And, I know that no one's gonna be judging me that I'm going with, but I judge myself. Sometimes I just don't feel like doing anything. Like I could just sit in my room and be as content as they come, just to not really deal with the world, I guess. But that's isolating, very. And you don't realize just how bad that is for yourself. But c'est la vie, I guess. So, I go on a lot of doctor's appointments, a lot. And the ironic thing is I feel like I have not been to my regular doctor in 2 years because I've just been going like a ping pong between my pulmonologist and my cardiologist. And now I just started going to a sarcoidosis specialist. But even that's annoying because that's like over an hour away that we have to drive. And honestly, I just kind of feel like he's just going to tell me the same thing. And there really isn't going to be much of a difference that he could do. But, I press on and I try to stay positive. I try to be upbeat. YouTube has been great. Although, admittedly, when I have these long hiatus away, it's because, sometimes if I have to do any type of commentary, then I always find I have to do a lot of editing because otherwise you hear either me coughing, depending if it's a bad day, or lots of, breathing or heavy breathing, which I'm sure you're gonna hear here because I really don't feel like editing much of anything. So you're gonna hear it all. But look, that's the video though. But in any case, I thank you for listening to me because it's my channel and I want it to reflect me. I want it to reflect stuff that I'm going through, and I certainly want it to be helpful. And I want it to feel like I'm just talking to my friends, which so many of you have become over these years. I also promise to be more active on this channel, but I'm also going to start incorporating other things. I want to chit chat. I want to use this as my outlet. But I promise it's not going to be all, doom and gloom, okay? But, you just sit tight. So listen, guys, please, thank you so much for listening. And don't forget to subscribe and click the bell so you're always notified for any video that I may upload. For all my folks that are here for Outlander, because I know that 99.98% of you are, look for those videos to start when the season starts. Again, thank you so much for watching. Until next time.